Hey everybody,
Fat Bird Pines here.
I'm Mary Beth.
And I'm Laura.
And welcome to Tales from the Put-Out Closet, Alice in Wonderland edition.
Sounds like the Sweaty Balls
How
episode.
was that? Was that good?
It's our podcast voices. Hi Renee, you found us.
Tonight,
Christy, you found us. Tippy Winks.
Tonight we are continuing Alice's adventures in Wonderland. That's what we're doing. You know, do you remember that a few weeks ago I was like, Nikki, do you have a copy of Alice in Wonderland? And she was like, no.
Uh-huh.
She found one. I did ask you.
And I said no?
Yeah.
I didn't even look?
No.
I felt...
and then she found a copy. We were going through yard sale stuff and she was going through her bookshelf and she was like, oh, look.
Well, I was surprised to find it. I didn't know I had that. I don't know where it came from.
I felt very accomplished as a mom because both of my kids let me know that they each have copies. Katie has a really cool vintage copy that I've bought her since she's, all grown up. And Megan has a really pretty child's illustrated copy as well. So that's real good.
Nice.
I'm trying to see where we left off.
So
we read through chapter 4.
If you haven't noticed, in honor of Alice in Wonderland, here's little Frank from our last book podcast. And
that's right.
And here is the Cheshire Cat from Jamie. Jamie gave us both of these little guys as our little mascots for our podcast. So we've got Cheshire Cat up here being friends with little Frank. So yeah.
Oh yeah, we had a big discussion. We want to call it Chessie.
Little Chessie.
Can I guess I can't do this.
We've gotten pretty far in this book, actually. We've done really well.
Yeah, because there's another whole book in that book.
Yeah. So we're on to chapter 5. Alice was trapped in the White Rabbit's house. She's just the worst. She just eats and drinks whatever she can find with no regard. She has no regard. I mean, I guess she's a kid.
She's a kid. That's what... You don't have the mom perspective here.
Here's the difference.
I mean, these kids will do anything. Here's
the difference. She's not only just a kid. She's very thoughtful because in her mind, she's thinking of all these things. And she's very proper, She's got some... She's been raised. She's got some raising. She understands how to be polite and what to do. But she just goes around eating and drinking stuff anyway.
I keep picking this up and putting it back down, but this book is so cute, but there's no way to really show the pictures and stuff. But we're getting ready to meet the caterpillar. This is this book's version of the caterpillar.
Well, nobody can see that.
Oh, I'm fixing it. And I guess I'll just set this up in the shelves.
So welcome to the podcast. We've got 62 of you here. We're really thankful for you being here with us tonight.
Oh boy, that's fun.
Yeah, so we are on to chapter 5, and chapter 5 is called Advice from a Caterpillar. If you're reading along, we would love for you to do that. If not, that's okay. All right, Laura, you ready?
I'm ready.
The caterpillar and Alice looked at each other for some time in silence. At last, the caterpillar took the hookah out of its mouth and addressed her in a languid, sleepy voice. "Who are you?" said the caterpillar. This was not an encouraging opening for a conversation. Alice replied rather shyly, I hardly know, sir, just at present. At least I know who I was when I got up this morning, but I think I must have been changed several times since then. What do you mean by that? Said the caterpillar sternly. Explain yourself. I can't explain myself, I'm afraid, sir, said Alice, because I'm not myself, you see. I don't see, said the caterpillar. I'm afraid I can't put it more clearly, Alice replied, very politely. See, she's very polite.
Hi, Fiona.
She's got some reason. She knows.
Oh, yeah. She's very...
She's very
learned.
Very learned.
But, people are expressing in the chat, just so you know, that their kids are scared of Alice in Wonderland. I think it is a little bit scary. I think it's not... I think it has its viewpoint for as a children's story, but I think it also can be scary if you're an adult.
Yeah, sure.
If you're a kid, not as an adult.
I'm afraid I can't put it more clearly, Alice replied very politely, for I can't understand it myself to begin with. And being so many different sizes in a day is very confusing. I bet. Quit eating stuff. Quit eating stuff. She knows it's going to happen by this point.
Mm-hmm. She can't help herself, man.
Back to that last line. And being so many different sizes in a day is very confusing. It isn't, said the caterpillar. Well, perhaps you haven't found it so yet, said Alice, but when you have to turn into a chrysalis, you will someday, you know, and then after that into a butterfly, I should think you'll feel quite queer, won't you? Not a bit, said the caterpillar. So she's smart enough to understand a chrysalis and a metamorphosis, but she's not smart enough to know not to eat stuff just lying around.
Well, I don't think it's intelligence. I think it's her, inquisitive curiosity that gets the best of her. I mean, come on now, Mary Beth. If you walked up to something with a big, beautiful, scripted tag that says "Eat me" on it, come on.
I ain't doing it.
You would.
I ain't doing it.
You would.
You don't know me. Back to that last line. When she's talking about you'll turn into a butterfly, I should think you'll feel quite queer, won't you? Not a bit, said the caterpillar. Well, perhaps your feelings may be different, said Alice. All I know is it would feel very queer to me. You, said the caterpillar contemptuously.
Yes.
That word's hard for me to say.
Yeah, like he doesn't like her.
You, said the caterpillar contemptuously. Who are you? Which brought them back again to the beginning of the conversation. Alice felt a little irritated at the caterpillars making such a very short remarks and drew herself up and said very gravely, I think you ought to tell me who you are first. Why? Said the caterpillar. Here was another puzzling question, and as Alice could not think of any good reason, and the caterpillar seemed to be in a very unpleasant state of mind, she turned away. Come back, the caterpillar called after her. I've something important to say.
I don't get the vibe. I don't have the vibe for the caterpillar just yet.
Oh, the caterpillar's my favorite character.
Is he like aloof and, is he coming off friendly? Is he coming off hateful? Is he scary? Is he like a druggie?
I think the caterpillar is very blunt and everything is very literal to the caterpillar.
Like Jeffrey.
Yeah. Yeah, like Jeffrey.
Jeffrey could be the caterpillar.
Yeah, that's Jeffrey. Everything is very literal. Like, there's nothing to the imagination. Everything is what it is. And there's nothing to speculate on.
Gotcha.
Who are you?
Well, who are you?
Yeah.
Can I just say, Fiona just made the point, Wonderland makes the best petit fours. You can't blame Alice for that. What if there was a bakery named Wonderland and it made all the treats and made all the little tags that said different things on them? Yeah.
Yeah.
And such. Would that be brilliant? At least a bakery could at least do an Alice in Wonderland day,
Yeah.
That'd be so cool.
That would be cute.
Maybe we can order, like for our last episode, maybe we can order treats and make them say what we want.
I want to say something that's one of my favorite things in the world, Laura, and you may not know this.
Oh.
About me.
Really?
Yeah. So this last line, the caterpillar he says, come back, the caterpillar called after her. I've something important to say. Not, I have something important to say, but I've something important to say.
Oh.
That's one of my favorite things, is that language like that.
That grammar?
Instead of saying I've something important to say. I think that's great.
Well, that's neat.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things.
I didn't think after all this time you would say something that you like that I've never heard you say.
Yeah, I really like that language. I've something important to say.
That's so cool.
This sounded promising, certainly. Alice turned and came back again. Keep your temper, said the caterpillar. Is that all? Said Alice, swallowing down her anger as well as she could. No, said the caterpillar. He's just kind of an asshole. I think I like that about him.
Well, yeah, I mean, you like him, so.
I do. Alice thought she might as well wait, as she had nothing else to do. And perhaps, after all, it might tell her something worth hearing. For some minutes, it puffed away without speaking, but at last it unfolded its arms, took the hookah out of its mouth again, and said, "So you think you're changed, do you?" "I'm afraid I am, sir," said Alice. "I can't remember things as I used, and I don't keep the same size for 10 minutes together." "Can't remember what things?" said the caterpillar. "Well, I've tried to say, 'How doth the little busy bee?' But it all came out different." Alice replied in a very melancholy voice. "Repeat." "You are old, Father William," said the caterpillar. Alice folded her hands and began. "You are old, Father William," said the young man said, "and your hair has become very white. And yet you insistently stand on your head. Do you think at your age that is right?"
You know, they used to have to do that, right?
Yeah.
They used to have to memorize and recite things, lessons.
Yeah.
Their lessons were memorized.
Yeah. The poem continues. "In my youth, Father William replied to his son, I feared it might injure the brain. But now that I am perfectly sure I have none, why, I do it again and again. You are old," said the youth, "as I mentioned before, and have grown most uncommonly fat. Yet you turned a back somersault in at the door. Pray, what is the reason of that?" "In my youth," said the sage, as he shook his gray locks, "I kept all my limbs very supple. By the use of this ointment, 1 shilling the box, allow me to sell you a couple." The poem continues. "You are old," said the youth, "and your jaws are too weak for anything tougher than suet. For you finished the goose with the bones and the beak. Pray, how did you manage to do it?" "In my youth," said his father, "I took to the law and argued each case with my wife. And the muscular strength which it gave to my jaw, he lasted the rest of my life." "You are old," said the youth. "One would hardly suppose that your eye was as steady as ever. Yet you balanced an eel on the end of your nose. What made you so awfully clever?" "I have answered 3 questions,
An
that
eel?
An eel. "I have answered 3 questions, and that is enough," said his father. "Don't give yourself airs. Do you think I can listen all day in a stuff? Be off. I'll kick you downstairs." Yikes. "That is not said right," said the caterpillar. "Not quite right, I'm afraid," said Alice timidly. "Some of the words I have got altered." "It is wrong from beginning to end," said the caterpillar decidedly. And there was silence for some minutes. That's always awkward when something is silent for like minutes.
Yeah.
You're like waiting for somebody to say something and like nobody will say anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I work with this dude that I'll like ask him a question and he'll like look at me for a minute and I'm like, say something.
That's very awkward.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go back to that last line. "It is wrong from the beginning to end," said the caterpillar decidedly, and there was silence for some minutes. The caterpillar was the first to speak. "What size do you want to be?" it asked. "Oh, I'm not particular as to size," Alice hastily replied. "Only one doesn't like to change so often, you know." "I don't know," said the caterpillar. Alice said nothing. She had never been so much contradicted in all of her life before, and she felt that she was losing her temper. So this is something interesting too. Have you ever had a conversation with somebody and they question you a lot?
Oh, yes.
And you're like taken aback. You're like, nobody's ever talked to me like this. And it's like off-putting a little bit. So you don't really know how to take that person because they question everything you say.
Yes.
But it's also kind of interesting at the same time.
Is it?
Yeah. Do you feel like I question you a lot?
Not really.
I feel like you say the same things sometimes, so I'm like, I don't understand.
Does that count?
Yeah.
I'm not even counting that.
Oh.
I think, now, let's be clear. To contradict someone is different than to question them.
True. But is he contradicting her?
Didn't he say that?
Well, he says, what size do you want to be?
Gaslighting, yes, gaslighting.
Oh, I'm not particular to size, Alice hastily replied. Only one doesn't like to change so often, you know. I don't know. He's just being truthful. He's like, I don't understand what you're talking about. And he's saying that. It's like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
He's just very, very literal.
Yeah.
And she doesn't understand that.
Yeah. If we get a different example, I'll stop you and...
Okay. Alice said nothing. She had never been so much contradicted in all of her life, and she felt that she was losing her temper. Are you content now? Said the caterpillar. Well, I should like to be a little larger, sir, if you wouldn't mind, said Alice. 3 inches is such a wretched height to be. It is a very good height indeed, said the caterpillar.
That's a contradiction.
Is it?
Yes.
How?
Well, because she's saying 3 inches isn't that great. And he's like, yes, it is. It's a great height.
Well, probably because he's 3 inches. Yeah. She says 3 inches is such a wretched height to be. It is a very good height indeed, said the caterpillar angrily, rearing itself upright as it spoke.
Well, he's contradicting her.
It was exactly 3 inches high. Well, she's insulting him.
Well, I mean, right, but I'm still saying that's a contradiction. That's why Alice is getting so defensive. Everything she says, he says, no, that's not right.
But I'm not used to it, pleaded poor Alice in a piteous tone. And she thought to herself, I wish the creatures wouldn't be so easily offended.
My grandmother used to say, hey, don't dispute my word. That's what she meant. Like, when we say, no, that's not, it didn't happen like that. Oh my God, she would be so mad.
You'll get used to it in time, said the caterpillar, and it put the hookah into its mouth and began smoking again. This time Alice waited patiently until it chose to speak again. In a minute or two, the caterpillar took the hookah out of its mouth and yawned once or twice and shook itself. Then it got down off the mushroom and crawled away into the grass, merely remarking as it went, one side will make you grow taller, and the other side will make you grow shorter. One side of what? The other side of what? Alice thought to herself. Of the mushroom, said the caterpillar, just as if she had asked it aloud, and in another moment it was out of sight. Alice remained looking thoughtfully at the mushroom for a minute, trying to make out which were the 2 sides of it, as it was perfectly round, and she found this a very difficult question. However, at last, she stretched her arms round it as far as they would go, and broke off a bit of the edge with each hand. And now which is it? She said to herself, and nibbled a little of the right hand bit to try the effect. The next moment she felt a violent blow underneath her chin. It had struck her foot. She was a good deal frightened by this sudden change, but she felt that there was no time to be lost, as she was shrinking rapidly.
Oh.
So she set to work at once to eat some of the other bit. Her chin was pressed so closely against her foot that there was hardly room to open her mouth, but she did it at last and managed to swallow a morsel of the left-hand bit. Come, my head's free at last, said Alice in a tone of delight, which changed into alarm in another moment when she found that her shoulders were nowhere to be found. All she could see...
What's happening?
All she could see when she looked down was an immense length of neck, which seemed to rise like a stalk out of the sea of green leaves that lay far below her.
Oh, no. She's like a giraffe.
What can all of that green stuff
That's
be?
what Max calls it,
said
a giraffe.
Alice. And where have my shoulders got to? Oh, and my poor hands. How is it that I can't see you? She was moving them about as she spoke, but no results seemed to follow except a little shaking among the distant green leaves.
Yikes.
As there seemed to be no chance of getting her hands up to her head, she tried to get her head down to them and was delighted to find that her neck would bend about easily in any direction like a serpent.
Oh, gosh.
She had just succeeded
How
in
horrific.
curving it down into a graceful zigzag and was going to dive in amongst the leaves when she found to be nothing but the tops of the trees under which she had been wandering, when a sharp hiss made her draw back in a hurry. A large pigeon had flown into her face and was beating her violently with its wings.
No.
"Serpent!" screamed the pigeon. "I'm not a serpent," said Alice indignantly. "Leave me alone." "Serpent, I say," repeated the pigeon, but in a more subdued tone, and added with a kind of sob, "I've tried every way, but nothing seems to suit them." "I haven't the least idea what you're talking about," said Alice. "I've tried the roots of trees. I've tried banks. I've tried hedges," the pigeon went on, without attending to her. "But those serpents, there's no pleasing them." Alice was more and more puzzled, but she thought there was no use in saying anything more until the pigeon had finished.
Brenda said Alice is so high.
"And if it wasn't trouble enough hatching the eggs," said the pigeon, "then I must be off on the lookout for serpents night and day. Why, I haven't had a wink of sleep in 3 weeks." "I'm very sorry you've been annoyed," Alice said, who was beginning to see its meaning. And just as I had taken the highest tree in the wood," continued the pigeon, raising its voice to a shriek, "and just as I was thinking I should be free of them at last, they must needs come wriggling down from the sky. Ugh, serpent!" "But I'm not a serpent, I tell you," said Alice. I'm a... "Well, what are you?" said the pigeon. "I can see you're trying to invent something." I'm a little girl," said Alice, rather doubtfully as she remembered the number of changes she had gone through that day.
It's like, am I?
I wonder if this
Are
is
you?
I wonder if this is a coming of age story.
Oh,
Like-
I think it's definitely
Like a puberty story.
Well, I think it's definitely just a POV of being a kid altogether. You know, like what things look like,
Well,
what
being-
language sounds like, what growing spurts feel like.
Well, but being a woman also. I mean, girls go through a lot of change in puberty. So maybe this is, growing here and filling out there and what that feels like. Mm-hmm. I've never really thought about that before.
Yeah, I think so.
"I can see you're trying to invent something." I'm a little girl," said Alice, rather doubtfully as she remembered the number of changes she had gone through that day. "A likely story indeed," said the pigeon in a tone of the deepest contempt. "I've seen a good many little girls in my time, but never one with such a neck as that. No, you're a serpent, and there's no use denying it. I suppose you'll be telling me next that you've never tasted an egg." "I have tasted eggs, certainly," said Alice, who was a very truthful child. "But little girls eat eggs quite as much as serpents do, "I don't believe it," said the pigeon. "But if they do, why then they're kind of like a serpent. That's all I can say."
Great.
This was such
Alice, that didn't work out for you there,
I'm going to read that again.
kiddo.
"I don't believe it," said the pigeon. "But if they do, why then they're kind of a serpent. That's all I can say."
So if she said little girls eat eggs as much as serpents do. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, okay, the next paragraph. "This was such a new idea to Alice that she was quite silent for a minute or two, which gave the pigeon the opportunity of adding, 'You're looking for eggs. I know that well enough. And what does it matter to me whether you're a little girl or a serpent?' "It matters a good deal to me," said Alice hastily. "But I'm not looking for eggs, as it happens, and if I was, I shouldn't want yours. I don't like them raw." "We'll be off then," said the pigeon in a sulky tone, as it settled down again into its nest. Alice crouched down among the trees as well as she could, for her neck kept getting entangled amongst branches. And every now and then she had to stop and untwist it. After a while, she remembered that she still held pieces of mushroom in her hands, and she set to work very carefully, nibbling first at one and then at the other.
Oh, no.
And growing sometimes taller and sometimes shorter,
Ugh.
until she had succeeded in bringing herself down to her usual height.
Wow. How did she, imagine that. She's just like
Yeah.
seeing what happens in each bite. Fiona says, I hope I find a mushroom in the fridge.
It was so long since she had seen anything near the right size that it felt quite strange at first, but she got used to it in a few minutes and began talking to herself as usual. Come, there's half my plan done now. How puzzling are all these changes. I'm never sure what I'm going to be from one minute to another. However, I've got back to my right size. The next thing is to get into that beautiful garden. How is that to be done, I wonder? As she said this, she came suddenly upon an open place with a little house in it about 4 feet high. Whoever lives there, thought Alice, it'll never do to come upon them in this size. Why, I should frighten them out of their wits. So she began nibbling at the right hand bit again, and did not venture to go near the house till she had brought herself down to 9 inches high.
Oh, my goodness.
She's just like a glutton for punishment.
Yeah.
All she wants to do is just keep changing. She keeps saying she wants to be the right size, but she just keeps doing it.
Yeah.
She doesn't have to go to that house. Go somewhere else.
Well, the people in the chat were letting us know that another word for contradiction like that is gaslighting.
Yeah.
So then that's a fairly, recent term. And, that's what they're doing. They're just telling her that she shouldn't feel how she's feeling. And, they're like, it's a bad acid trip.
We could use a few more thumbs ups if you're willing. Laura's going to take over the next chapter.
Okay.
We're 30 minutes in. I think we can do one more, don't you?
Sure. But yeah, don't you think it's interesting when you think about it? Like how women are gaslighted in this day and age, and
That's true.
All those characters were doing that to her.
That's true.
He's like, you're a serpent. She's like, God, I'm not a serpent.
Yeah.
I do some things that some serpents have done, but I'm just a girl. I'm not, you know what I mean? Like,
but on the other hand, think about it this way. What are humans? We're sort of parasites on this earth. We take resources, we use them, and we deplete them. We're sort of parasites. So I hear what you're saying, that these creatures are gaslighting her.
Uh-huh.
But maybe they're telling her things that are quite literal. That's sort of true. Serpents come after the pigeon's eggs. Well, humans do that too. So to a pigeon, a human and a serpent are causing the same amount of damage to their eggs.
Uh-huh.
So they are like a serpent. So I just feel like, are they gaslighting her? Maybe, but it's also it's like an out of box perspective way to think about things.
Yeah, which is the whole point of Alice in Wonderland. Like,
Yeah.
he does it with the language. He does it, like, very literally with words that mean two different things.
Yeah.
So, yeah. He makes fun of that. Like, that we have words that mean two completely different things.
Yeah.
That's the same word. Yeah. So, I'm sure the same is true for ideas. They
Yeah.
mean two different things.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we are ready for chapter 6. Pig and Pepper.
Pig and Pepper.
Oh, I think I remember this. I'm having a hard time. I'm challenging myself to try to remember as we go, and it's kind of hard. It's been a long time. For a minute or two, she stood looking at the house and wondering what to do next, when suddenly a footman in livery came running out of the wood. She considered him to be a footman because he was in livery, the outfit and everything. Otherwise, judging by his face only, she would have called him a fish. And rapped loudly at the door with his knuckles. It was opened by another footman in livery, with a round face and large eyes like a frog, and both footmen, Alice noticed, had powdered hair that curled all over their heads. She felt very curious to know what it was all about, and crept a little way out of the wood to listen. The fish footman began by producing from under his arm a great letter, nearly as large as himself, and this he handed over to the other, saying in a solemn tone, "For the Duchess, an invitation from the Queen to play croquet." The frog footman repeated in the same solemn tone, only changing the order of the words a little. "From the Queen, an invitation for the Duchess to play croquet." Then they both bowed low, and their curls got entangled together. Alice laughed so much at this that she had to run back into the wood for fear of their hearing her, and when she next peeped out, the fish footman was gone, and the other was sitting on the ground near the door, staring stupidly up into the sky. Alice went timidly up to the door and knocked. "There's no sort of use in knocking," said the footman, "and that for 2 reasons. First, because I'm on the same side of the door as you are. Secondly, because they're making such a noise inside, no one could probably hear you." And certainly there was a most extraordinary noise going on within, a constant howling and sneezing, and every now and then a great crash as if a dish or kettle had been broken to pieces. "Please then," said Alice, "how am I to get in?" "There might be some sense in your knocking," the footman went on, without attending to her, "if we had the door between us. For instance, if you were inside, you might knock, and I could let you out, you know." He was looking up into the sky all the time he was speaking, and this Alice thought decidedly uncivil. So he was paying no attention to her whatsoever. He just kept going. "But perhaps he can't help it," she said to herself. "His eyes are so very nearly at the top of his head. But at any rate, he might answer questions. How am I to get in?" she repeated aloud. "I shall sit here," the footman remarked, "till tomorrow." At this moment, the door of the house opened, and a large plate came skimming out, straight at the footman's head. It just grazed his nose and broke to pieces against one of the trees behind him. "Or next day, maybe," the footman continued in the same tone, exactly as if nothing had happened. "How am I to get in?" asked Alice again in a louder tone. "Are you to get in at all?" said the footman. "That's the first question, you know." It was, no doubt, only Alice didn't like to be told so. "It's really dreadful," she muttered to herself, "the way all the creatures argue. It's enough to drive one crazy." The footman seemed to think this is a good opportunity for repeating his remark with variations. "I shall sit here," he said, "on and off for days and days." "But what am I to do?" said Alice.
"What will I do?"
"Yeah, what will I do?" "Anything you like," said the footman, and began whistling. "Oh, there's no use in talking to him," said Alice desperately. "He's perfectly idiotic." And she opened the door and went on in. The door led right into a large kitchen, which was full of smoke from one end to the other. The Duchess was sitting on a 3-legged stool in the middle, nursing a baby. The cook was leaning over the fire, stirring a large cauldron which seemed to be full of soup. "There's certainly too much pepper in that soup," Alice said to herself, as well as she could for sneezing. So Alice goes in and immediately starts sneezing. She's like, "Oh my God, the pepper." There was certainly too much of it in the air. Even the Duchess sneezed occasionally, and as for the baby, it was sneezing and howling alternately without a moment's pause. The only 2 creatures in the kitchen that did not sneeze were the cook and a large cat, which was lying on the hearth and grinning from ear to ear. "Please would you tell me," said Alice, a little timidly, for she was not quite sure whether it was good manners for her to speak first, "why your cat grins like that?" "It's a Cheshire cat," said the Duchess, "and that's why." "Pig," she said. She said the last word with such sudden violence that Alice quite jumped, but she saw in another moment that it was addressed to the baby and not to her, so she took courage and went on again. "I didn't know that Cheshire cats always grinned. In fact, I didn't know that cats could grin." Oh, what a picture. Gosh. You guys look at that. Oh my gosh, the Duchess. Okay. They all can, said the Duchess, and most of them do. I don't know of any that do, Alice said very politely, feeling quite pleased to have gotten into the conversation. You don't know much, said the Duchess, and that's a fact. Alice did not at all like the tone of this remark and thought it would be as well to introduce some other subject of conversation. While she was trying to fix on one, the cook took the cauldron of soup off the fire and at once set to work throwing everything within her reach at the Duchess and the baby.
Oh.
The fire irons came first, then followed a shower of saucepans, plates, and dishes. The Duchess took no notice of them, even when they hit her, and the baby was howling so much already that it was quite impossible to say whether the blows hurt it or not.
Yikes.
What a scene. Oh, please mind what you're doing, cried Alice, jumping up and down in an agony of terror. Oh, there goes his precious nose! As an unusually large saucepan flew close by it and very nearly carried it off. If everyone minded their own business, the Duchess said in a hoarse growl, the world would go round a deal faster than it does. Which would not be an advantage, said Alice, who felt very glad to get an opportunity of showing off a little of her knowledge. Just think what work it would make with the day and night. You see, the earth takes 24 hours to turn round on its axis. Talking of axes, said the Duchess, chop off her head.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Alice glanced around.
That escalated really quickly.
Alice glanced rather anxiously at the cook to see if she meant to take the hint, but the cook was busily stirring the soup and seemed not to be listening, so she went on again. 24 hours, I think, or is it 12? Oh, don't bother me, said the Duchess. I never could abide figures. And with that, she began nursing her child again, singing a sort of lullaby to it as she did so, and giving it a violent shake at the end of every line.
Yikes.
I mean, that's scary.
That is scary.
That's a scary scene. I don't know what the tune here is. I'm just going to say it, right? I'm not going to sing this. You want to sing?
No.
Okay. Let's see. Speak roughly to your little boy and beat him when he sneezes. He only does it to annoy because he knows it teases.
Yikes.
And the chorus in which the cook and the baby joined. Wow, wow, wow. That's the chorus of the song. While the Duchess sang the second verse of the song, she kept tossing the baby violently up and down, and the poor little thing howled so that Alice could hardly even hear the words. I speak severely to my boy. I beat him when he sneezes, for he can thoroughly enjoy the pepper when he pleases. And the chorus again was wow, wow, wow.
Yikes.
Oh,
This is terrible.
Here, you may nurse it a bit if you like, the Duchess said to Alice.
She's like a kid.
Flinging the baby at her as she spoke. I must go and get ready to play croquet with the Queen. And she hurried out of the room. The cook threw a frying pan after her as she went, but it just missed her. Alice caught the baby with some difficulty.
This is like batshit bananas.
Alice caught the baby with some difficulty as it was a queer-shaped little creature and held out its arms and legs in all directions. Just like a starfish, thought Alice.
Yikes.
The poor little thing was snorting like a steam engine when she caught it and kept doubling itself up and straightening itself out again, so that altogether for the first minute or two, it was as much as she could do to hold it. That's terrifying.
It is terrifying.
As soon as she had made out the proper way of nursing it, which was to twist it up into sort of a knot and then keep tight hold of its right ear and left foot so as to prevent its undoing itself, she carried it out into the open air. If I don't take this child away with me, thought Alice, they're sure to kill it in a day or two. Wouldn't it be murder to leave it behind?
Yeah.
She's
got that going for her.
She said the last words out loud, and the little thing grunted in reply. It had left off sneezing by this time. "Don't grunt," said Alice. "That's not at all a proper way of expressing yourself."
Come on, Alice. It's a baby.
The baby grunted again, and Alice looked very anxiously into its face to see what was the matter with it. There could be no doubt that it had a very turned up nose, much more like a snout than a real nose. Also, its eyes were getting extremely small for a baby. Altogether, Alice did not like the look of the thing at all. But perhaps it was only sobbing, she thought, and looked into its eyes again to see if there was any tears. Nope, there were no tears. "If you're going to turn into a pig, my dear," said Alice seriously, "I'll have nothing more to do with you. Mind now." The poor little thing sobbed again, or grunted. It was impossible to say which. And they went on for some while in silence. Alice was just beginning to think to herself, "Now, what am I to do with this creature when I get it home?" when it grunted again so violently that she looked down into its face in some alarm. This time, there could be no mistake about it. It was neither more nor less than a pig. And she felt that it would be quite absurd for her to carry it any further.
Yeah. Everybody's like, this is not a kid's book.
So she set the little creature down and felt quite relieved to see it trot away quietly into the wood. If it had grown up, she said to herself, it would have made a dreadfully ugly child. But it makes rather a handsome pig, I think. Oh, she's trying to be nice. And she began thinking over other children she knew who might do very well as pigs. And was just saying to herself, if one only knew the right way to change them, when she was a little startled by seeing the Cheshire Cat sitting on a bough of a tree a few yards off. The cat only grinned when it saw Alice. It looked good-natured, she thought. Still it had very long claws and a great many teeth, so she felt that it ought to be treated with respect. Cheshire Puss, she began.
What?
Of course, I get this passage here. Let's see. She began rather timidly, as she did not at all know whether it would like the name. However, it only grinned a little wider. Come, it's pleased so far, thought Alice, and she went on. Would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here? That depends a good deal on where you want to get to, said the cat. I don't much care where, said Alice. Then it doesn't matter which way you go, said the cat.
It's very true. Everybody's very, very literal in this world.
Yeah. So long as I get somewhere, Alice added as an explanation. Oh, you're sure to do that, said the cat. If only you walk long enough. Alice felt that this could not be denied. So she tried another question. What sort of people live around here? In that direction, the cat said, waving its right paw around, lives a hunter. And in that direction, waving the other paw, lives a March hare. Visit either you like. They're both mad.
Great.
But I don't want to go among mad people, Alice remarked. Oh, you can't help that, said the cat. We're all mad here.
We're all mad here.
I'm mad.
What's
you're
the
mad.
quote? We all go a little mad sometimes.
Uh-huh.
What movie's that from? We all go a little mad sometimes.
Oh, I know it. You're going to have to tell me.
No, go. You can guess. We all go a little mad sometimes.
Oh, I can't get it.
Psycho.
Psycho. Dang it. He says, I'm mad, you're mad. How do you know I'm mad? Said Alice. You must be, said the cat, or you wouldn't have come here. Alice didn't think that proved it at all. However, she went on. And how do you know that you're mad? To begin with, said the cat, a dog's not mad. You grant that? I suppose so, said Alice. Well then, the cat went on, you see, a dog growls when it's angry and wags its tail when it's pleased. Now, I growl when I'm pleased and wag my tail when I'm angry. Therefore, I'm mad. I call it purring, not growling, said Alice. Call it what you like, said the cat. Do you play croquet with the queen today? I should like it very much, said Alice, but I haven't been invited yet. You'll see me there, said the cat, and vanished. Alice was not much surprised at this. She was getting so well used to queer things happening. While she was still looking at the place where it had been, it suddenly appeared again. By the by, what became of the baby? Said the cat. I'd nearly forgotten to ask. It turned into a pig. Alice seemed to have answered very quietly, just as if the cat had come back in a natural way. I thought it would, said the cat, and vanished again.
I thought it would.
That's what I thought was going to happen.
I figured it would. I want to live in this world. No, I want to be a resident of this world and like fuck with people who like come around and they're like, well, I turned into a pig. I thought it would. That's
what I thought would happen.
That's what I want to do. That's what I want my full-time job to be.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Alice waited a little, half expecting to see it again, but it did not appear. And after a minute or two, she walked on in the direction in which the March Hare was said to live. I've seen hatters before, she said to herself. The March Hare will be the most interesting.
Where did the hatter come from?
He said the hatter lives over there, and the March Hare lives over there.
I missed you saying that. Sorry.
Yeah. So she's trying to choose which way she's going to go. Each one's in an opposite direction. Let's see. Yeah, the March Hare will be the most interesting, and perhaps, as this is May, it won't be raving mad. At least not so mad as it was in March. As she said this, she looked up, and there was the cat, again sitting on the branch of a tree. Did you say pig or fig? Said the cat. I said pig, replied Alice, and I wish you wouldn't keep appearing and vanishing so suddenly. You make one quite giddy. All right, said the cat, and this time it vanished quite slowly, beginning with the end of the tail and ending with the grin, which remained some time after the rest of it had gone.
That's awesome.
Well, I've often seen a cat without a grin, thought Alice, but a grin without a cat? It's the most curious thing I ever saw in my whole life. She had not gone much farther before she came in sight of the house of the March Hare. She thought it must be the right house because the chimneys were shaped like ears and the roof was thatched with fur. It was so large a house that she did not like to go nearer until she had nibbled some more of the left-hand bit of mushroom.
She's still eating that damn mushroom.
And raised herself to about 2 feet high, even though she walked up towards it rather timidly, saying to herself, suppose it should be raving mad after all. I almost wish I'd gone to see the hatter instead. That's the end of the chapter.
Something tells me that she's going to see them both anyway.
You know, the hatter is kind of scary. I don't know if it's just the Johnny Depp version of the hatter, but you know, like, I mean, I've always seen, today I saw the top hat of the hatter, you know, with the little piece of paper that said like 10/6 or something in the brim or in the ribbon, in with Halloween decorations.
Oh, cute.
Yeah.
You've seen the Disney movie though, right?
Yeah, but it's been a long time.
I really like the Disney movie.
I need to watch it again.
It's always been one of my favorites.
Is
just because it's just batshit bananas.
Does it go with like this?
It's pretty similar, I have to say. I mean, it's not exact, but it's pretty close.
Oh, I should have showed the cat.
Yeah, let me find it for you.
Oh, there it is. The image of it just having the grin there is pretty alarming.
That's alarming. So are you guys having fun so far? I mean, is it fun? Also, we need one more thumbs up to get 50. So if one of you guys that haven't hit the thumbs up button already, if you could do that, we will have 50 thumbs ups, and that would be great.
I hope you guys are enjoying it. It's really fun. I'm glad I didn't go back and read it first. It's fun to read it with you guys together.
I mean, I feel like if I were her, I would just want to eat like all the big mushroom and just like tromp around.
She's gonna wish she did that when they like put her on trial and crap.
Yeah, true. Maybe so. All right, guys. Well, I hope you're having a fun time with Alice in Wonderland. We are having a fun time. Yeah, Disney definitely cut out the pig part. Yeah, that's not in there.
That's bad.
That's weird.
Very weird.
Yeah. That's like some Animal Farm shit right there. All right, guys. Well, we are going to cut out of here.
That's cool. We could have a watch party at the end.
What is that?
Angela said we should have a watch party at the end of this.
What does that mean? To watch the movie?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that would be fun.
I guess we can't show the movie.
Yeah, I don't know how we would do that.
You guys be thinking about that. I don't guess we can really.
I don't know how we would do that.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a good try. Guys, thank you so much for joining us for Alice in Wonderland. We really appreciate it. If you're watching this later, leave us a comment and let us know if you're liking the book so far. Let us also know if you're reading along with us or if you're just listening. I'm curious to know who all's reading along in their books. Guys, have an awesome weekend. Make sure you like this video before you leave. Subscribe to our podcast channel if you haven't already. You know, it hasn't been the podcast channel that I have hoped it would be, only because we're just so busy. It's hard.
We have all these big ideas.
We have huge ideas, but it's hard to always execute those.
Yeah.
But when we do execute them, it's really nice to have you guys following along and supporting us. And we really appreciate you.
And we had somebody tell us today that they went back and watched the whole Frankenstein series. That one is complete.
Yeah.
So if you want a good, fun thing to do for like,
spooky season.
Yeah, for spooky season, like in the car or something, that's kind of fun. And it's all, it's all there.
It's all done. All right, guys, do something fun this weekend. Enjoy yourselves. And as always, make sure you stay tuned to see what Fatbird finds next. And we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.